Hello, everyone. My name is Fergal O'Keefe from MS Ireland, and I'd like to invite you now to the latest Unspeakable Bits webinar. Um, Trevis will introduce our wonderful panel now in a minute, but before that, I just want to let people know that you'll see down below there's a Q&A and chat button, and if you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A rather than the chat, and Trevis will try and go through as many as we can throughout the evening. And also let you know that I've already put up a link. Our next Unspeakable Bits will be the 17th of April at the same time, and the link is up there. And we'll also have it on all socials, and also this will be on our socials tomorrow as well. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Trevis.
Virgil, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. This is the second of our 2025 series of the Unspeakable Bits. And as Virgil said, I'm your host for the evening, Trevis L Gleason. This is the third year of our series of Unspeakable Bits, and there are a good few folks to thank for their continued support. We thank MS Ireland for affording us this platform so that we can delve into these topics. It's not easy to talk about some of our subject matter, even among family and friends who know us and know MS. And many of our topics and subject matter were once considered taboo, not only here in Ireland, but in MS communities all around the world. So having time and space to talk about things that many aren't comfortable hearing, let alone discussing, is an important resource for those of us living with multiple sclerosis and other co-occurring conditions, and our families as well. So a massive thank you, Gar Mahagat, to MS Ireland for that. It's also impossible to put on these programs without our expert panelists. We've had leaders in their field from around the globe to delve into the unspeakable with us. We thank them, one and all, for their invaluable help with episodes past, present, and future. And speaking of which, all of our previous episodes of the Unspeakable Bits webcast are available on the MS Ireland YouTube channel for your viewing and for your continued comments. This program will be posted there in about 24 to 48 hours, as Fergal was saying, after we wrap up. And maybe we can get Fergal to put up a link to those previous programs as well. And we invite you to submit your questions to our panel tonight via the questions tab at the bottom of the screen. And as Fergal mentioned, please don't use the chat function because that gets things all messed up. And at this hour with people with MS, messed up is not a good place to be. But use the questions tab, and your questions will be put through to us, and we'll get to as many of them tonight as we can. Now, I mentioned our expert panelists, and tonight is certainly no exception, and we are grateful to have with us Emma Rogan, an internationally recognized advocate for inclusion, diversity, and people with disabilities. Declan Groeger, who is a longtime disability advocate and a founding member of the MS and Me blog for MS Ireland. And John Fulham, a former Irish Paralympian and a current public engagements manager for the Irish Wheelchair Association. All three of our panelists are also wheelchair users. And because of that, might I get each one of you perhaps to tell us how, and if you're comfortable, why you started using a wheelchair. And Emma, I think you're the newbie here. So we'll start with you. What's your story? And you're muted. There you
Thank,
go.
thank you. Thanks, Trevis. And it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you for putting me in the spot first as the newbie, because it is really new to me, and perhaps some of the participants would know me. I was diagnosed with MS quite a while ago, more than 15 years ago, and I'm such a newbie. It's about a month and a half newbie. So my mobility has been, let's say, worsening over the past number of years. And I was using a walking stick a lot. Unfortunately, I had a couple of bad falls. I had one particular bad fall last year. And I think it really has shaken my confidence. You know, the trip, the literally falling flat on my face, did a lot of damage. But it also has really limited me because it's on my left leg that I'm feeling a lot of paralysis, let's say, for want of a better phrase. And yeah, it has been so limiting. it's been so limiting that I had spoken to an occupational therapist with the local health board, and it was last year that had the assessment for a wheelchair, and I started using one then in the past month and a half, about a month and a half. John, how long do I know you, John? It's really John has been so instrumental. So it's been let's give it a month and a half, and I that's how I've started being a wheelchair user, and it has caused such an upset in a positive way that I did not expect, and I'm really glad to be here to contribute to this discussion.
Great, and we'll get to some of those positives later, as
Mm.
well as some of the
Oh,
negatives.
there's also negatives. Yeah,
Oh yes, and we'll
let's
get
not
there.
be,
So it's the
unicorns and
unspeakable
all that.
bits.
Yeah, yeah.
But you're not, how would I say this? You're not 100% of the time in the wheelchair. So this is sort of a transition period for you as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Good. That's important for people to know. It's not a start and stop one or the other for everyone. And John, I believe that you probably have been using a chair for the longest. What's your wheelchair story?
Well, my wheelchair story is Trevis. Thank you, and thank you for asking me to be here. It's a pleasure to talk and have input. I'm a my disability I have, it's congenital. I have it since I was born. But I started using a wheelchair at the age of 5. Up until then, I used alternative forms of transport. The biggest of which, the most commonly used, was my mother. So I was carted around, but we had trolleys and we had all sorts of stuff. But I moved into a wheelchair at the age of 5, and yeah, that was certainly, even at that age, was a game changer in terms of independence and in terms of getting out there and starting to do things myself. So I've been using a wheelchair for what? God, do my maths, 48 years now at this stage. So if anybody's very quick, they'll know my age.
Well, I'm certainly not the quick one there, and I thank you for being here. And we'll talk a little bit more later on about some of your work with the Wheelchair Association of Ireland as well. Declan, I know that you use your wheelchair because of MS, but what was your initial experience?
My Back in 2004, when Jean and I were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary, we went to Rome for a week, and I rented a wheelchair there because Rome is tough. And the day after I came back from Rome, I rang my neurologist and told him the story and said, I want one of those. And as John said, it was a game changer. It I I, I was afraid it was going to tie me down. It didn't tie me down. It increased my freedom to use my energy for what I wanted to do, not what I had to do. I didn't have to walk, even though I can still walk short distances with my rollator, but it increased my freedom exponentially. It was just, as I said, it was just awesome. Now I don't use it full time. I walk around the house a lot of the time. I use the wheelchair more when I'm out and about, rather than in the house. Although I found of recent times that I'm using it more around the house now. So yeah, yeah. It's now I was diagnosed with MS back in 1988. So I'll be 68 my next birthday, and I
What's
will,
this with everyone trying to have me do the maths here?
yeah, I was diagnosed at 31. So yeah.
Right. Um, well, thank you all for that. I mean, I know that these are kind of personal stories, and the group of us here, we do live out loud a bit with our diseases, but it's refreshing. Um, we don't shy away, as I said, about the difficult topics on the Unspeakable Bits, and I suppose that we perhaps purposefully chose a provocative title for this program. We called it, inverted commas, "Ending Up in a Wheelchair." It's pretty harsh language if we think about it, but many of us have used it when we first learned of our own MS. I mean, hand raised myself, I probably used those words or something along that line when I thought about what the disease might do to me. But it isn't ending up, because there's so much very more to life than walking, or like Emma and yourself, Declan, walking all the time and everywhere. It's really ableist language, even when spoken by someone like ourselves who might be disabled. So, Emma, I know that this is a raspberry seed in your own wisdom tooth. So, would you like to address the offensive term of ending up in a wheelchair?
Yeah, I think it was when we were talking about this together, Trevis, when we were discussing it, and you gave me the title, and my immediate reaction was less than savory, let's say. And I it is definitely ableist. It's definitely in the early stages when I was diagnosed, it was this the catastrophizing of being diagnosed with MS was definitely ending up in a wheelchair, and that was the next thing, was the grave. That was the sort of trajectory of it. And it has been, I suppose, over the years, as I have learned and developed my own understanding of what it means to be a disabled person in this very ableist world. And having started to use a wheelchair, and having a sense of, as someone had said earlier about a sense of independence, I thought I thought that fire had gone out of me over the years. Really struggling to walk, take those falls happening to me, that not being able to do all the things that I wanted to do with, I have some young children, and not being able to do things with them, like going on a big trip with them, and a big walk, or an adventure with them. So I have been really limiting myself, what my activity, out of just energy conservation, but also my risk. My risk has been really high since starting to use a stick and having less mobility. So using a chair has just been incredible. It has been something I never expected.
So you
And
you did that to yourself, though. You were like, "Oh, I don't want to. I'm pushing it off. I'm pushing it off. I'm pushing it off." So we can do that to ourselves as well. We don't want to start using a walking stick
yeah,
until
I
well after we
definitely,
need it.
absolutely, absolutely. And I do think there's a certain amount of there I yeah, I suppose it's the sadness of a progression of a health condition. There's a lot of sadness in changes to your mobility and changes to you as a person and to your body.
Mhm.
And I think I have a wonderful therapist. I think mental health and having mental health support is vital for everybody dealing with a health condition and dealing with changes in their health condition. And I think that has really stood to me as I have dealt with this transition, and I've dealt with it in a way, oh my God, it's so sad. It is sad that my health has deteriorated. That is there. What has happened now, since I've started to use a wheelchair, is I have regained a sense of independence. I've regained a sense of freedom. I'm able to go places that I haven't been able to go in years because I've been on wheels.
Yep.
And my posture is different when I'm using a stick, and I do use a stick regularly. I'm looking down to make sure I'm not tripping. I'm not seeing my world. Whereas when I'm sitting in my chair and I'm using it, I can see, and my confidence, I think there's some sense of restoration for me in my sense of personhood, which I did not expect from becoming a wheelchair user.
Okay. All right. Well, a lot of times with those of us not in chairs, we think of it as the opposite, that you're going to lose self-esteem. John, you didn't end up in a wheelchair. You started out in a wheelchair. So tell us the difference there.
Well, you see, it's really interesting just to listen to Emma there and talk uh, about her experience, because I don't have MS, so I have age and the changes that happen with me as I get older. in relation to my disability or age related, but they are still changes, and it's not to be disrespectful to anybody who has MS. So we all have changes, irrespective of the cause. But for me, starting out in a wheelchair, it was a game changer. It allowed me to go off out with my friends. It allowed me to go out there, and because when you know no better. Yeah, I was a 5 year. What's it like to grow up as a child with a disability? Haven't a clue. I grew up as a child, and my wheelchair was an enabler. It was a tool that allowed me to go out there, and that's how I saw it. And there was back then, and possibly even still now, there was so much of an obsession with walking, and that they put me through tripods, they put me through crutches, they put me through calipers, they put me through everything. And I wanted none of it. I wanted none of it, but the wheelchair for me was the cool thing. As a child, it was that thing that was cool. I could go off with my friends. I wasn't slower than them. I could actually was faster downhill. Braking was an issue, but we learned. All of that type of fun as a child. So that's the perspective that I got from moving into a chair at that age. My parents said to me I got my first chair in Fannon's in Grafton Street, and they let me go down Grafton Street, and I bombed off down the street. And my poor parents, they were like, "Oh my God," you could imagine them, going, "Oh God, what's going to happen?" But it was a sense of freedom that I'd never had before. So that was the perspective I then took with me through my whole life. Now I say that, but I think we are in this discussion. This is coming from we are victim of our societal norms, and we are victims of the culture that has been created over a long, long time. And that piece about ending up the obsession, as I said to you, with walking, that the only solution is walking. And if the inference was that if you're not someone who can walk and hop around and do all those things, well, you're somewhat lesser. And so, as a society, we've lived that. We've built the society around us to include steps. We've just created the world around us, based on that cultural thing. And I was the one who would have used that expression, ended up in a wheelchair, without even thinking about it, until somebody actually pointed it out to me. And it's very, very true. So I think that whole thing around disability is that you're somewhat lesser, that you're somewhat, you've got to be looked after, you've to be taken care of. That's the cultural background that we're now having the conversation to change. And I think we're all a victim of it. And I even as a teenager, I loved my wheelchair, but as a teenager growing up, I didn't want to be seen with anybody who used a wheelchair, because I felt that was a negative reflection on me. And I wouldn't go back to my teenage years for many reasons. And all of us could relate to that. But that was one of them. And I found in hindsight, looking back on that, really interesting that I picked up subconsciously on all the societal norms and behaviors and attitudes. And it reflected it in my own life. I got over it fairly quickly. But the fact that it was there is an interesting observation to me as a young person. That I felt there was something wrong. And people say, I love going into schools and talking to kids, because they'll go, "What's wrong with you?" I'll say, "There's nothing wrong with me, but I think what you're asking me is how come I've ended up using a wheelchair." And to be fair to them, and that's what they're doing, because kids have no agenda, they've no filter. I love
Yeah.
them. And they just go straight for the jugular. And once they get the information, they're happy, but they come with no judgment. And my point, I suppose, to round off, Travis, is that society and culture has created that judgment, and we're now trying to break it. So for me, a chair is, from my perspective, from growing up using it, it's like a pair of glasses. It's a tool. It's an enabler. It allows me to do what I can and want to do.
Declan, anything you'd like to add on the
Yeah,
language of?
yeah. I I didn't end up in a wheelchair. I chose a wheelchair in the end. And
Like that.
again, and as I said earlier, it was specifically for my energy levels and my MS to make my life easier, and to make Jean's life easier, to make everybody's life easier. I I I don't object to people asking me, how did I end up in a wheelchair? I object to people asking me, am I wheelchair bound?
You're
I'm a
not tied
wheelchair
to it.
user.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not tied to it, and you're already in it, so you're not
Yeah.
bound for it. You're already there. Yeah.
So yeah.
Um, Well, that's really good information for a lot of our viewers who are sending things in and are worried about the possibility of the wheelchair being a next step or a step down the line. So I think that change in language is very good. But not everyone goes from walking to EDSS 7, which according to the scale, the expanded disability scale is, quote, unable to walk beyond approximately 5 meters, even with an aid, especially restricted to essentially restricted to a wheelchair. The wheels a standard wheelchair are able to get around alone, up and about in a wheelchair about 12 hours a day. Maybe Fergal, you could put up a link because the EDSS scale is something we hear a lot about, but not everyone knows each one of those steps. So for some, there is a transition and others there isn't. John, we were kind of talking that yours wasn't really a transition, but that's not the case for most people with MS, and unless it's a very sudden and acute attack from which we don't recover. For those, I suppose when someone comes in contact with the Irish Wheelchair Association, where are they in that conversation, in that transition usually? And how can the association help?
It's a really interesting one, Travis, because people assume by virtue of our name that we only support through our work people who use wheelchairs, and we don't. We have all forms of physical disability. We have learning disability. We have amputees, stroke, cancer-related illness. We've got amputees, people who may be walking with a frame, the walking wounded, as we call them. So it's any form of disability. So they come to us on any stage in their existence and at all stages in their existence. So our mantra is it's really how can we support you? We're not really interested in for the expression what's wrong with you. We're interested in making sure that you live life in the manner of your choosing and you have the right equal rights, choices, opportunities. So we're there to support you in whatever way we can support you. But we'll have people come to us across all spectrums.
And are the family members, the partners, I won't use the term care partners, but the people who are closest to the people using the wheelchairs,
Mm-hmm.
etc., and other levels of disability, what services can you provide to them or resources? Because I know that's for most of us who live with MS, as we progress in the disease, those who are close to us, those who love us, want to be able to help, and we're trying to figure out how we can help ourselves, let alone figuring out how to ask for help. So how can you be of assistance to them?
Well, interestingly, I suppose a lot of our services are around what we can do to support the person themselves, the person who has the condition or the disability. So a lot of our work focuses around that practicality. But the engagement when someone first comes to it, we don't just talk to that person. A lot of the time, our representatives will be meeting the people. They'll be talking to their families. They'll be trying to get a sense of what it is what are the circumstances that surround that person? What infrastructure or what support mechanism is around that person? And that a lot like we have 2,500 employees, but I would say 1,800 of them are out doing personal assistance services every day. So they're out there supporting people in because there's a big difference between a home care and a PA service. So a PA's personal assistant is going in, doing whatever you say to allow you to live your life and working with the families in establishing what those requirements are is a way that we do actively support families. So it's not just the whole picture has to be taken into consideration when you're looking at it, because some people are in great circumstances and will have a lot of support, and as with life, and other people will come to us with in circumstances where they don't have a huge level of family support, and they may have an inappropriate style of family support, and our discretion and our confidentiality does not allow me to go into further detail than that, but we deal with all elements of the family at that stage.
Okay, thank you. And that's going to actually part of our topic for our next discussion next month as well. Emma, I know that because you're a pal of mine and we've talked about it, you've done loads of work in the preparation for this transition. You saw it coming. You wanted to do this as best you could for yourself and for your family. Could you talk a little bit about that psychological and emotional preparation?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Travis. I think as I said about our mental health when we're going through something like this transition, I've been very fortunate to have a good counselor, but also to do lots of reading, to speak to others about it in the preparation. I know a lot of people in the MS world, so reading materials, but also with the IWA, getting in touch with them quite quickly. I think there has been I've noted in myself, and I'm not sure how Declan or John would speak to this, but perhaps you as well, Trevis. I had a longing for what had been, and I'm a middle-aged woman now, and I had to stop running. You know, back when I was when my mobility was being affected. So I think I was hankering to the past as opposed to focusing on my present and what I could be doing as a wheelchair user. And that shift has allowed me to embrace things like going to the IWA gym, meeting John at the wheelchair basketball. And one of the things that I have really missed is fitness, and being fit and being strong. And I've noticed that since I have started using a wheelchair, my my fitness is better because I am using exercise and the gym in a different way. But I'm also, in terms of my mindset is very different. My mindset is very much in this present moment. And how can I use the tools that are here? And how can I use me as my body is now, as I'm presenting in the world? How can I use the tools available to me to build my strength? As I said, as a middle-aged woman, as somebody probably perimenopausal, you know, it's really important for women to build their strength, and particularly women with MS to build our strength in as much as we can. So I've certainly embraced things very differently. I'm sure I've gone around the houses answering your question, Trevis, but I hope that I've given
No,
enough
no,
there.
that's good. It's funny that we've got a question right now that's has to do with physical activity and adaptability to a chair, et cetera. And so, yes,
Mm.
absolutely, that can be done. You can keep strength. This person who put
And
in the
rebuild it, actually, sorry,
yeah.
and actually rebuild it because that's
And
what
you
I
know,
have to do.
I smiled there a little bit to laugh. Whether you knew it or not, you kind of used a metaphor in there, and you said you had to stop running. You had to stop running, but you also had to stop running from the fact that you couldn't
Yeah,
be running anymore. You're
yeah,
a poet
yeah.
and you
There's so
don't
many
even use
layers.
words.
There's so many layers
That's
there.
it.
There's so many layers.
And speaking of questions, as we move on, please don't hesitate to put your questions through. We'll get to as many as we are able, as I said, and hopefully, Julie, we answered your question there. Declan, I know that you're involved with the Cork Access Group, which assesses and advises the Cork authorities on matters of wheelchair access, etc. So let's talk about some of the difficulties and barriers that there can be to using a chair when you're out and about, because I know that that's we've had conversations before. I know that that's something that it's a real part of it, be it, dog poo on the street or people leaving their wheelie bins in the way and all that. So
Dog poo. The list is unending. The list is, and um, how, I've been in a number of street furniture audits with Cork City Council, and the, no disrespect to anybody in the city council, but they don't realise what apparently the additional footpath is supposed to be no more than 6 millimeters above the road. That's barely a quarter of an inch. They don't realise what a difference a 12 millimeter dish will make. It's just you have to ask people in wheelchairs what they're going through, and it's not enough for politicians to sit in a wheelchair for an hour and go around and have someone push them around. It's people with the lived experience have to be asked. Um, and I started recently on an audit in the unmarked wheelchair disabled blue badge parking spots recently. And it just beggars belief that it, obviously the abuse of disabled parking spots is huge, but the inability of the city council, and I'm presuming every council is the same, the inability to mark them properly, or even, geez, to put, excuse my French, to put correct signage up and stuff like that is just the. And I remember blogging about it at one stage where if I wheel through a shopping center and go into any one of the clothes stores and somebody drops clothes or something on the ground and doesn't put it back up onto the rack, that is an obstacle to a wheelchair use. It's an obstacle to me, and I consider myself to be fairly nifty in the wheelchair. I have good upper body strength, but that is a huge obstacle. And people just they're careless, they're reckless. They, it isn't that they don't care; they just don't think.
Yeah. And John, I see you, and I'm not calling you out for it because we all do it a bit. But I wrote a piece once because someone had gotten in touch with me, a very dear friend, or actually the husband of this friend, and talked about one of the, I suppose it's one of the unspoken because it's one of the unthought about things about using a chair most of the time, and he referred to it as chronic discomfort. So I had people when they started reading the blog find a book that was close to them, put it under one cheek of their bum, and then finish reading so a lot of people don't understand that being in a wheelchair has discomforts to it as well that are a part and can increase, and you can get pressure sores, etc. So would you like to, from the Wheelchair Society or Association's point of view, can you speak to some of those difficulties?
That's an interesting because it's very bespoke to the individual. And it firstly is that you've got to make sure that if you're starting to use a chair, that it's a good chair, that it's made to measure for you, that it's the correct width, it's got the correct wheel balance. There are practicalities on it that if a chair is designed badly, it makes it far more difficult to use. But if you can get a chair that's designed correctly and balanced correctly for you, and takes into account your lifestyle, it can make a huge difference to how mobile and how nimble the use of that chair is. I constantly have fights with occupational therapists because they probably if they see this they'll hate me because I feel they don't listen to me. They're actually more intent on telling me what they've acquired as their knowledge rather than what I've acquired as my knowledge as the person with the disability. So it can with the chair, but there are very much practicalities around what people think. To Declan's point, if there's something thrown on the ground and I'm looking up and I'm not looking down and my front wheel hits it, suddenly I can find myself being propelled. The chair may stop, but I may keep going. And it has, as anybody who says, did you ever fall out of your chair? God no. God no. Yes, I do. And it is an undignified thing to happen. But you know what? It's not a catastrophe. If you can, you get back in and you move on. But it's about those things that Declan referred to it. It's about the lack of thought. So things like that can make a difference. So discomfort in the chair, make sure you have the right chair, but things will change. And you mentioned to it for someone who's acquired a disability, say it ended up a paraplegic or a quadriplegic, pressure sores, if you don't have the right cushion underneath your ass, pressure sores may become a real problem for you. So if you're starting to use a chair, it's really important that you get the good advice and that lived experience that Declan talks about, and Emma and myself have talked about. That lived experience, there's a huge wealth of knowledge out there from people who've been down that road, who've been there before you. And there is good professional expertise, even though I diss them. So if you can get the right person, that you can get the right advice. And that will cut out an awful lot the crap, but stuff will happen. And if you're with age or with MS, if your circumstances change and your physical condition progresses, things will change, and you might need to adapt to move with that as well.
And Emma, I know that you're sort of new to this, and one of the things that I've talked with lots of friends who don't mince words will say is not only does your view of yourself change in many cases for the better, but your literal and physical view of the world changes. All of a sudden, you're looking at belt buckles instead of eyes on a good day, I suppose. So what are, how is the perspective down there? We talked about before about kind of the infantilizing of people in a wheelchair and wanting to push you around when you don't want to be pushed, etc. What are some of those difficulties that you've found so far?
I'll speak to that in just a moment. One of the things that John has said is about speaking to other people in the community, and that is something that I didn't really do, and that is something I would certainly encourage people to do before the transition to using a wheelchair. Before I answer your question, excuse me for speaking over that. It's been illuminating. Let's say it has been a one incident is I frequently go to a certain place, and since I started to using a chair more, it has been such a shift, and in a negative way in that particular place. As I said, back to my confidence and to I think my self-esteem, sitting in a chair and being comfortable and feeling safe and feeling assured has meant I am more forthright, I think, with people now. So they might, maybe they have tried, but I've been not, it hasn't happened so much to me, let's say, so I think it's, excuse me, I have a child here. Sorry for interrupting us. But I think there is a different view of you. People are literally looking down on you. But I also think that by sorry about this. Excuse me, Kai.
Not a bother at all.
5-year-old. Speaking of 5-year-olds, there has been a change to how people look at me. But I think because my confidence has sort of almost met them where they're at. In a way, but there is definitely a change. People have actually been more helpful to me than I expected, and people have been more human to me than with when I'm using a walking stick, actually.
Declan, have you been the target, for lack of a better term, of any sort of negativity, of any sort of abuse or criminal activity?
Not criminal activity, but certainly I would probably class it as abuse. In the last 3 to 4 months, I was actually down in the local shopping centre, and a total stranger. No, as you can imagine, a shopping centre, lovely smooth tile floors and everything. And I was coming in from the car. Jean had gone ahead, and next thing, this person just pushed up behind me and started pushing me forward up the thingy. And I just put my hands down, jammed on the brakes, and I said, "Stop. I'm just helping. If you want to help, ask, does the person need help? Don't just presume the person needs help. I don't need your help. I don't know you." But it's grand. Now, since then, people, whether the word went around our local shopping centre that I was their crank, for want of a better word. People ask me when I'm going up the bit of a small incline to the library or something like that. People have asked me, do I need help? My grandson, who's 9 in June, he now asks me, "Granddad, can I push?" So he has grown up with the wheelchair. He has grown up with the disability, and even he asks, and he has I think one other friend that would be a bit disabled. He's not a wheelchair user, but he asks, and people should ask, not presume.
And John, since we're talking about some of the negative things here, are there statistics to which you're aware of the prevalence of crime against people with wheelchairs because they're easy targets or could be considered
I,
easy targets?
I'm not aware of any statistics, Trevis, but I haven't really gone out and looked for them. I'm not aware of crime per se. But it's on the converse of that. There has been some work trying to make sure that prisons are accessible. Because not just because you have a disability doesn't mean you're nice. So that, if you want equality, you get equality everywhere. And we had some interesting story. We had a funny story of someone who complained in our organization many years ago because they were egged by kids. And they shouldn't be egging someone who uses a wheelchair. And they went in and looked at the footage. And yes, they were egged, but they were told where to go by the man who looked at it with them at the moment. Because he goes, look, you'd be given out if you weren't egged and everybody else was egged. And if you want equality, you get equality. So everybody was egged. So you're on your own. But I just picked on Emma's point. I think we need to be very realistic and say when you move into a chair, it's going to make certain things um, great and better, but you are going to encounter a different set of challenges. And Declan referred to them or alluded to them there in terms of the access audit. If you look at the bottle machines for claiming back your money, they are now a stealth tax on people with disabilities because I can pay my tax to buy them, but I can't actually use the machines to actually claim my money back because they're too high. That's something that was designed and implemented without 1 ounce of consultation with the people who have the lived experience. And I think that we can talk about that till the cows come home. That's a big problem that people with disabilities are not included from the very beginning when design of the world around us is being made. And it seems to me at times that when it comes to push comes to the shove and there are budgets and there are things to be cut, that having a disability or disability is the issues are the acceptable compromise when you're trying to please everybody. And I think that's got to stop. And one practical impact, you ask, what's it like down at this level in the world, Travis? When the smoking ban came in, at that time, my God, I was destroyed from the smell of farts in a pub because I'm at that level, and the smoking the smell had completely disguised the fact that people were letting rip in the pubs at my level, and all of a sudden I was traumatized by Guinness and all the associated alcohol at that, and it was oh my God. So there's a humorous practical reality of it, but you will encounter different challenges and around access, around things being at a different level, at a higher level, ATMs, counters, people wanting to pat you on the head instinctively because you're at that level. All that type of stuff will present to you, but it's how you tackle it and face with it. I like Declan. I'm constantly asked if I need help, and I like the fact that people ask because it allows me then to go, no, thank you, I'm okay, but thank you for asking. And I think that's really important. It's because I do believe that people are well intended. It's just complete ignorance of how to approach it that leads to an awful lot of the awkward
Mm.
situations. And
Yeah.
that's my opinion on it.
No, we appreciate all of these. They're brilliant. We've talked a lot about kind of those negative things, but it's far from all doom and gloom.
Nope.
So when you're using a chair to get around, how has your life changed for the better? I know that Emma, you had kind of touched on a little bit of these, but did you give your wheelchair a name?
Me?
Yeah. Did I remember hearing that? So,
Called it a few things. Um, nothing safe for work. I no, it's certainly it's a quite a bright color. So I I've called it a few different names, but yeah.
But so
But
back to the
sorry, your
lifestyle
question.
things. I mean, you're out there. You mentioned basketball. Were you a basketball player before? And this is a way to get
No,
back into
never.
it.
Hate it. Absolutely hated it when I was in school. Played hockey. I know, John, I know. I played hockey and cricket and football, and no, basketball, it was never my thing. But contacting the IWA and looking at their materials and seeing what was available, and also getting to try out the chair, John, it was and is something I hope to get better at, because I really enjoy speed and I really enjoyed the adrenaline of a team sport. Um, so yeah, hopefully basketball, but also weights and doing things like that. Um, yeah, I'm hopeful that will be able to continue and I'll be able to get better at that.
There was a question that came up in reference to someone enjoying swimming and noting that not a lot of beaches are accessible in Ireland. I have seen in Europe sort of these rollout um, uh, boardwalks, for lack of a better term. I just spent some time in Florida in America. I was at Miami Beach, and there were the same things. They were sort of these removable rollout boardwalks that certainly helped. And then the sand was pressed down by rollers every day to make certainly bicycles could get along with it, so I assume that wheelchairs could as well. Um, Declan, I know that you go to the gym on a regular basis, etc. But can you tell us some of the other positive things from your aspect? I mean, you're a granddad, as you'd mentioned. How do the weans get on with the wheelchair?
Um, Jack, when I'm watching the telly, Jack will steal my wheelchair and he'll wheel around the house in it. Um, the I suppose, yeah, li- life has become easier for me. Right, the difficulty is getting out because I after I had a serious medical issue a couple of years back, I've been unable to get the wheelchair into the boot of the car on my own and then get back up to the driver's door. So now Jane, I'm totally reliant on Jean or somebody else to do it for me. But other than that, there's I I don't think I have any negatives, or I probably gloss over them. One of the earlier lessons I learned from an OT or a physio was that my shoulders are now my weight bearing limbs. I will probably never need a hip transplant or a hip replacement. So I have to, and I work hard at keeping my upper body as good or better than it should be. Um, no, I do a few leg machines on in the gym as well, because you um, if you don't have strength in your legs, you can't stand up. If you can't stand up, it's difficult to dress yourself. So I work on keeping my independence as much as I can, and my upper body and my leg. No, I will never be the person who breaks the machine in the gym for overloading it. I will never be the muscle Mary that's going to be bench pressing and whatever. But I enjoy the social aspect of the gym. I enjoy doing as much as I can do in the gym safely and comfortably. But these are the important things for me now, and the gym helps.
And John, we've got a question. It
Mm.
kind of goes back to what you were talking about with the fitting of the chair, etc. The person who's asking wants to know how can they know exactly what it is that they need from a chair, and then how can they express that to those who are fitting them, getting them, or ordering them the chair.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and there's no one answer to that question. I would say to that person who's asking, the important things are about what do you want from the chair? What is it that you want the chair to do for you? And things like having that discussion with whoever is measuring you and talking to you about acquiring that chair or how or funding that chair. And it's really around your lifestyle, what and being very honest about what your capabilities are but also then, but what you want to achieve. So you might say, well, I want the chair to be light. I want to be able to get it in and out of the car myself. That's a very, if you can drive, that's a very practical thing. Or maybe light for the person if you can't do that, for the person who's putting it in and out for you. I want it to be easy to turn. So I don't want to have to really lug, and that's where the balance within the chair. You know, there's any amount, how much back support do you want? It's very important that the chair should never be too wide for you. Your bum should not be swiveling or swishing around in a seat. It should be to your hips. So that the less movement that you have in the chair, it's like anything that's badly fitting. The more play that comes in it, the more damaged it gets. So to have the chair to fit they're the types of things that you need to discuss with someone. And I would say to you, don't be afraid to ask the question and don't be afraid to challenge back. Certainly, and there were years ago when I was younger, I ordered an aqua green chair, and because I thought a brighter color would be cool when I was younger, what I got was duck egg blue, which led me to a life of misery and slagging from my mates. But again, I didn't challenge back. If you don't want a bright color and saying, "Oh, it'll look cool," no, I want a black chair with a silver frame. Thank you very much. This is what I want. So again, it's about the conversation, and if certainly there are people out there you can when you're starting off in a chair you're probably going to move on from your first chair into a chair that better suits you because when you know better you do better and there is a process and a time of adjustment and you'll find out what works and you'll probably move. I would spend because I'm using my chair every day, my chair is probably somewhere around 6 to 8 thousand euro, but I'm in it every day and it's lightweight and I know what I want. It's custom built. It won't fit Declan and it won't fit Emma. It'll only fit me. And that's the point that you eventually want to get to, that you know what your chair is, because it's the enabler of your life. So you want it to work for the lifestyle that you have and that you want. So it's probably not the answer the person wants, but it's around the conversation. And
Yeah, and
I'm
who are
happy
they
to talk to
specifically
anybody.
speaking? Who would they be specifically speaking with? An OT, or
Probably a
as someone
physio
from?
or an
Okay,
OT. And then again, there are probably then the people who you would get the chair from, and who would measure you for that. The OT may measure you for that chair, or if you're going privately, you'll be talking to the person for whom that company. That like there's any number of them. There's Got Mobility. There's other ones out there. So again, you could be talking to that person as well. And it would never be shy. And that's where having a network of people who's been through this and done this before is really useful. For example, some people don't realize that you may be able to claim a significant amount of your chair and your VHI if that's the healthcare provider you use, or if there's another healthcare provider that may have some support mechanism in place to allow you to claim some element of your chair. If you're not getting one from the HSE, because the spec of the chair that you'll get privately will be better than the one you will get from the HSE. But the HSE is the starting point, potentially.
and Declan, how long does the chair last you?
Well, I'm in the process of replacing my chair. I'm having a new chair delivered uh, next week. Um, this one probably lasted about 3.5, 4 years. The one previous to that lasted about 5. But then I gave this one a very tough I gave this one a very tough life. I wheeled the equivalent of a half marathon around the streets of Cork there pre-COVID, and going through the potholes strewn streets and lanes and alleyways and stuff like that probably didn't help. I'd taken on holidays. It has had a tough life, and equally this one I bought privately. The HSE are funding the one that's being delivered next week. And again, it's being, as John said earlier, it's being custom made for me. The OT has been involved from the very word go. The the guy who's making it is a wheelchair user. He has his own company and he's starting it. Probably the only difference this time is that I'm getting an add-on power drive.
Yeah.
I get for when I'm out and need just that bit of a boost to get back home whatever. Somebody can clip it on underneath, and I can power away again. That's probably something that I wouldn't have thought of until this time.
There's no such
But
thing as like a pedal assist like an electric bike, is there, where you could be wheeling yourself, but maybe with a little assistance as it go on? Or are you, John, you're nodding your head. There is.
there is, yeah.
There is, yeah, yeah. There is.
Right.
So there's Declan's point is valid depending on what you need and depending on what you want. It mightn't be that you need it, but you might want that. Like there's certainly there are things that you can put on the wheels of the chair that have been started that would add to that energy push. There's also attachments that can go on the front of the chair that are battery operated, and they can be hand pedaled, or they can be just literally by pressing an accelerator. So there's any multitude of addition that you can pimp your ride as in whatever way you want to.
And then there's also the Newfoundland Retriever with a harness. I suppose you could do that as well. Put reins on him. Listen,
Yeah.
our time is going
Some
at
people
pace here
do.
tonight.
Some people do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen it. We've covered a lot, but there's so much more that begs discussion. These hours always seem to slip away, and they end like this. But I'm going to ask each of you in turn for some final thoughts on the use, be it daily or occasionally, of your wheelchair as an assistive device. So, ladies first. Emma, final thoughts for everyone on what it's like to be a new wheelchair user.
I think it's thanks for the program, Trevis. Really, really, really valuable time with you all. I think it's finding meaning in being a wheelchair user and finding more meaning in my life having become a wheelchair user. It has certainly reopened my world in a way that I didn't expect, and I look forward to my days more since becoming a wheelchair user and becoming more used to being a wheelchair user. So that's a big shift for me.
Yeah, that's massive. Thank you very much. Declan, some final thoughts from you.
I fought every assistive technology device that came my way. I kept putting it back and back and back. And as I said, I fought it all. But the wheelchair, to me, is the great liberator. It's the word Emma used is that it enhances our life. It has enhanced my life. There are slight drawbacks, but the benefits far outweigh the negatives.
Perfect. Thank you, Declan. And John, final thoughts from you.
I would just say a wheelchair is not a negative thing. It's like a pair of glasses. It's an enabler. It's as you say, it's a liberator. It allows you to live your life. It allows you to do things that you may have considered not possible. And if your circumstances change, whether you acquire a disability or are born with a disability, no matter what way it goes, the world is still your oyster. It's a different oyster, but it's still your oyster. It's still the chair is a thing that will allow you to do what you want to do. Your circumstances have changed. As Emma said, put that there. Now go live your life, and the chair will help you do that.
Yeah.
This is brilliant. Thank you so much, all of you. It's as it always does. Our time has quickly come to an end. There's so much more to discuss on this topic, even with late night MS fatigue. But we all have to know when to say when. So I thank our guest Emma, Declan, and John for your insights. Fergal O'Keefe for producing, and to MS Ireland for the Unspeakable Bits platform. Don't forget, please mark your calendars and your diaries for our next episode, again on the third Thursday of the month. It'll be the 17th of April this year, again at 7 p.m. Irish time. Our panel of experts will speak the unspeakable when we talk about neglect, abuse, and multiple sclerosis. So until then, I'm your host, Trevis L Gleason, wishing you and your family the best of health. Cheers, and back to Fergal.
Good night, everybody.
And once again, I just want to thank everybody, Declan, John, and Emma, for the great input tonight. And as usual, Travis, for being such a great host. And just as we said, I put up the link there, but we'll also have it on all social medias tomorrow for the next webinar. And also on our socials, we will have this recorded, be on our YouTube channel tomorrow, so you can let people know that didn't get to see it. It'll be there. So thanks again to everybody for a really powerful chat. Take care. Goodbye.
Cheers.
Bye. Night, everyone.